Turn left, then turn right.
Connection.
The Cold War, in many ways, was replaced with another Cold War. Not that the remnants of the Cold War still aren't with us, by the way. Our relationship with Russia is still circumspect in many ways. Our relationship and Russia's relationship with China is also circumspect. But there is one Cold War that we have been fighting since the 1980s. And that is with Iran. Iran is responsible for the death of U.S. military personnel when the American forces were in Iraq. It was Iran supplying most of the IEDs that killed and maimed American troops. Anybody that really studies global politics to whatever degree has surely come across what is not challenged very often by anybody, that the number one sponsor of terrorism from a state, from a world power, state-sponsored terrorism, is Iran. And those terrorists
use the left lane to turn left on East Clinton Avenue.
A tenth of the Iranian population is no longer in Iran. A tenth of their citizens that could afford to get out have left now. Many of them in America, you'll find strong presence in California. You'll find strong presence up in some states up north. And in Canada and other places, there's strong Iranian population, those that could afford to
In
get
half a
out.
mile, use the right lane to turn right on US 9W South toward Fort Lee.
They reveal the horror that has taken place in that country for the citizens of Iran. Now, I was on, and she was going on and on about how the king of Iran was deposed by this
Can you do the pasta? I'm in New Jersey.
Okay.
Okay, you pick up the bambina.
Yeah.
Okay, see you later. Thank you. Gasolina and benzina. Gasolina and benzina.
Turn right on US 9W South toward Fort Lee.
Fort Lee, Chuka, Malabuca. Malabuca, Malabuca.
In 1.7 miles, turn left on East Palisade Avenue toward Palisades Interstate Parkway, George Washington Bridge.
Seriously? George Washington Bridge? Seriously? Seriously? Some kind of smoke. Some kind of fog smoke in the sky. States of America.
Nobody has wanted to take on Iran. Except the
United States of America.
As Code reporter after Vermont's victory in 1972, according to Runner's World magazine, running is neither masculine or feminine. It's just healthy.
CNBC. CNBC. WABC.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon here on Red Light TV. I'm David First. Coming up next, we look at whether protests like those against President Trump can change minds or policies.
WABC.
Now, the Enlightened support comes from when offering wash and fold, dry cleaning, and hang dry services. Pickups can be scheduled online or with the Rinse app, and the clothes are delivered clean, folded, and ready to wear. More at rinse.com. You want to buy a house in America, you are going to owe money for a long, long time. More than 90% of home purchases are financed with 30-year fixed rate loans, and it really differentiates the U.S. from other countries around the world. I'm Ty Rizzo, the history of the 30-year fixed. Next time on Marketplace. This evening at 6:30 on WNYC.
Why 369? 369?
Yeah, 369.
Too much New Jersey, 369. New Jersey, 369. What the heck happened? No good, Gigi. No good, Gigi.
Mile. Use the left lane to turn left on East Palisade Avenue toward Palisades Interstate Parkway, George Washington Bridge. Then turn left.
WABC. WABC.
Turn left on East Palisade Avenue toward Palisades Interstate Parkway, George Washington Bridge. Then use the left lane to turn left to Palisades Interstate Parkway South.
Exactly. East Palisade.
Workday. Workday is an AI platform for forward thinkers dedicated to transforming the way business leaders manage people and money today so they can transform tomorrow. Workday, moving business forever forward. This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Mary Louise Kelly.
Use the
And
left
I'm Juana
lane to turn
Summers.
left to
More than 5
Palisades
million
Interstate
people
Parkway
turned out
South.
at more than 2,000 No Kings protests over the weekend. That's according to organizers' estimates. And the size and scale of anti-Trump protests has been growing compared to President Trump's first term. That is according to the political scientist Erica Chenoweth at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Chenoweth co-directs the Crowd Accounting Consortium, which documents political mobilization in the United States. They have called this widening movement an American Spring. Erica, welcome to All Things Considered. Thank you for having me. Thanks for being here. Okay, so we talked a while back, and when I talked with you then, you told me that crowd size, and disciplined message are some of the factors that really make for a
In 1.2
successful protest movement. So
Stay to the
I'd like
right
to
to
take stock of the protests that we saw over the weekend in your view. Did they have their relevance?
Well, my team is still tallying the protests from the No Kings events from around the country. But anecdotally, at least, and for the records that we've already validated, it's very clear that the general sense of many of the people who are participating was that they felt their own power and agency and participating in the protest. The second thing to note is that the day came off with potentially millions of people in the streets, as you mentioned, and with very few incidents of injuries, arrests, property damage, or anything else that might play into the narrative that the movement is not disciplined, is not nonviolent, and is not democratic, and it's set it apart
Stay to the
from
right.
previous
Then
eras
use the
of
left 3
American
lanes to
protests.
continue to
If you take a look at the size and the scale of protests in President Trump's current term and compare them to those that happened during his first term, can you tell us a bit about what you found?
Sure. So my team at the Crowd Counting Consortium, which I co-direct with Jeremy Pressman, has been tallying protests every day since the Women's March of 2017. So we've got a lot of years of compared to 2025. There have been well over 3 times as many protest events in the United States as has happened during the same period in 2017. The second thing about the protests that's really interesting and important is that over 99.5% of those thousands of protests during the April and May period alone featured
During California's National Guard to sending Marines to that state. So
there's a scholar named Christian Davenport who a number of years ago wrote an article called The Law of Coercive Responsiveness. And in that article, he makes the claim that any time a protest movement actually becomes powerful and threatening, the government will respond with force. And the more powerful and threatening a movement is becoming, the more powerful the response with force. One way to interpret the escalation is as a sign of the growing power and impact of the movement. That said, for engaging in protest once it is more threatening to the government and more politically threatening, I should say, when the government, for example, bundles peaceful protesters with those engaging in violent criminal acts while protesting. But I would say that it's a predictable response when a movement is gathering power.
That's political scientist Erica Chenoweth of the Harvard Kennedy School. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A federal judge in Boston has ruled that the National Institutes of Health acted illegally in terminating some 800 research grants. The grants focused on topics related to diversity, transgender issues, and other areas of research unpopular with the Trump administration. Now, as Craig LaMolt of member station GBA,
U.S. District Court Judge William Young ruled the NIH's terminations of those grants were arbitrary and capricious, and he ordered the agency to immediately
In
resume
3/4 of a
payment.
mile.
Attorney
Take
Rachel
exit
Miracle of the
1A, west
ACLU represents some of the plaintiffs and
178
spoke
Street,
after the
New York
ruling.
9A,
NIH had
Hudson
come
Parkway.
from, it seemed like it would be essential to protect the health of people in this country. Why it is all of a sudden on the chopping block? The agency completely failed to explain what it was doing adequately to the American people.
The judge went on to address what he described as a dark mounted to racial discrimination and discrimination against the LGBTQ population.
We are so, I guess, grateful to hear.
Of Harvard, her research is studying mental health inequities experienced by LGBTQ populations during the pandemic.
It makes a real tangible difference in the lives of marginalized communities when we have evidence to say, here are the inequities and here are our solutions.
But in March, she got some surprising news.
And there's an email from the NIH saying that effective immediately, the grant was terminated because its focus no longer aligned with agency priorities.
On Monday, Judge Young ruled that roughly 800 terminations like that were illegal and are now void. Even so, Betcha says she's not sure yet what the decision means for her and her research.
I'm not sure if my grant is included. I'm reading almost every
The grant that was referenced in the trial has not been made public. Attorneys for the ACLU say the ruling only applies to parties involved in the lawsuit. That's the researchers who were named plaintiffs, as well as members of the American Public Health Association and the union UAW, and researchers at public institutions in the 22 states that also filed suit. Kenneth Perreno is an attorney with the group Protect Democracy, which represented some of those plaintiffs.
We're incredibly grateful for the bravery of our clients who stepped up in this fight. I mean, this is an existential crisis here for science and public health. They put a lot on the line.
Even for those grants that are clearly included in the judge's ruling, it's not certain that they're going to get their funding. HHS stands by its decision to end funding for research that prioritizes ideological agendas over scientific rigor and meaningful outcomes for the American people, end quote. The statement goes on to say that HHS is exploring all legal options, including filing an appeal and moving to stay the order. For NPR News, I'm Craig LaMolt in Boston.
All things considered here on WNYC. Still ahead, in the 30 years since gospel singer CeCe Winans began her solo career, she learned a lot about performing live.
Sometimes we try to make everything too perfect, you know, and I think the most powerful thing is when it just comes from the heart and you're having fun.
CeCe Winans reflects on her career. That's coming up later this hour on WNYC. 66 degrees right now, cloudy skies. We're expecting those clouds to stay with us overnight tonight. Chance of showers and thunderstorms as well. And a pretty steady temperature overnight, standing in the upper 60s. It's 4:30.
Then use the right two lanes to stay to the right
WNYC
to
is
New York
independent
9A,
public media,
Henry Hudson
here to serve
Parkway.
you and our entire community. We're listener supported and proud of it. Financial contributions from listeners make our work possible. When you give to WNYC, you're helping to fund the news that you count on and the conversations yet to come. Please become a member now. Just visit WNYC.org and click on donate. Support for WNYC
15
here.
minutes to
Cutting
West
a few
26th
million
Street.
dollars is going to have billions of dollars of impact. It's going to affect people's lives. It's going to affect their health.
Another researcher told NPR that without long-term monitoring, it won't be possible to see how ecosystems are changing or whether interventions are making a difference. Ari Daniel, NPR News.
Consumer spending at stores and restaurants took a dip in May compared to April. NPR's Alina Salyer tells us about the latest report on retail sales from the Commerce Department.
Retail spending declined 0.9% in May compared to April. That's more than economists had forecast. One major driver was a decline in auto sales. Back in March, lots of people rushed to buy cars and trucks, hoping to get ahead of President Trump's tariffs to avoid higher prices. And this rush cooled off in May, with sales of autos and auto parts down 3.5%. The full impact of tariffs is still playing out as the Trump administration negotiates trade deals with individual countries and faces lawsuits. In May, U.S. shoppers still spent more on clothes and furniture, but about 1% less on going out to restaurants and bars, and almost 3% less on home improvement and building supplies. Alina Salyer, NPR News.
While stocks finished lower across the board on Wall Street today, the Dow lost 299 points. This is NPR.
And this is WNYC in New York. I'm David First, 66 degrees and 433. Federal applications have arrested city controller and mayoral candidate Brad Lander at a Lower Manhattan immigration courthouse, according to his campaign and staff. Video posted to social media shows Lander being led away into an elevator by someone questioning the officer's authority. A Lander campaign spokesperson says the incident happened while he was escorting a defendant out of the immigration court, 26 Federal Plaza. The Department of Homeland Security alleges Lander's works can be brutal for those sleeping inside homeless shelters without any air conditioning. WNYC's Karen Dean reports on the city's plan to the same center.
Nearly 4% homeless shelters don't provide air conditioning where people sleep. That's why the city's Department of Homeland Services says it's now requiring any new shelter to provide AC. The city amended its requested proposals in May, requiring any future shelter operators to provide air conditioning. It's part of the city's larger push to improve living conditions and encourage more nonprofits to own and operate shelters. While almost every shelter has some sort of cooling, that can also mean a fan inside every room or one common area that's air conditioned. The city says it can be costly for older buildings to do the capital improvement with air conditioning.
It is bee season in New York City, and swarms have been spotted across the 5 boroughs. Experts say there's no need to panic. Urban beekeeper Siri Chilara says the insects are usually on the move to form a new colony, not looking to sting afterthought.
And they're not necessarily violent or aggressive because they don't have a hive to protect. So they're generally well-behaved and are able to be well managed.
Health officials say the
For NPR comes from WNYC members and from Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management and Brew and its retailers, partnering with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society this June to give blankets and messages of hope to patients facing cancer. Learn more at subaru.com/care.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News.
This is doom and gloom, and that is thanks to a losing streak and also drama between the team's coach and the star player. And here, sports correspondent Becky Sullivan is
Construction reported ahead.
Every minute.
the middle of the Gold Cup that started last weekend.
In 300
Despite the
feet,
distractions, they had a
stay
great
to the
opener
left
on
to New
Sunday
York
with a
9A
5-0
South
win over
downtown.
Trinidad and Tobago. They're not the stiffest competition, but it was very important to end the 4-game losing streak. Now they've had games in coming days versus Saudi Arabia and Haiti, and then potentially a knockout round that could include the higher level competition like Canada and Mexico. Lots of young players are getting a chance to prove themselves right now, so if they can win this from their deep and good teams, I think that would change the narrative and upbeat sentiment around the team. We will be watching. Thank you, Sullivan. Thank you. You're welcome.
This month, the new president took office in South Korea, promising to reduce tensions and resume dialogue with North Korea. His first move was to unilaterally call a halt to psychological warfare operations along the inter-Korean border, and Judge Anthony Kim reports on what that means for residents.
Long-legged white birds swoop over rice fields in the farming village of Samsangri on the inter-Korean border. 1 mile across the Han River estuary is North Korea. If you look up in the hills, you can see a loudspeaker which blasts unsettling noises at Samsangri at all hours. We visited last week while the loudspeaker wars were still in progress. I'm Joe Shaw, Samsangri's village chief. He says a public health clinic did a survey to gauge the impact of all the wailing and screeching noises on residents.
They didn't ask every single resident, but they found 100% of the people they asked are sleep deprived. But still, the government is doing nothing except for soundproofing windows, and not even for all homes.
The two Koreas have been blaring propaganda at each other on and off for more than 6 decades. The South restarted the broadcast last June in response to the North sending trash-filled balloons into the South. Village Chief Han says the South needs to move first to end it.
What we're all asking for is that we stop our own broadcasts toward the North for at least 1 or 2 months. And if they stop, that's the simplest solution. If we stop and they don't, then that's out of our hands.
Some people, though, think the South's broadcasts are an effective tool. An Chang-il is a former North Korean soldier who says he was persuaded by the broadcast to defect to the South in the 1970s. He says he sprinted across a minefield in the demilitarized zone, ready to kill himself with his pistol to avoid capture if he stepped on a mine. Before that, as his army rations dwindled and he felt hunger pangs, An listened to broadcasts describe how the South was surging ahead of his country in private ownership of cars, fridges, and TVs.
While I was hearing the numbers, I was also seeing with my eyes. Because I was manning outposts inside the DMZ, the helicopters and the vehicles moving on the other side.
An is now president of the World Institute for North Korean Studies. He argues that the South's broadcast should not be seen as psychological warfare because they're welcomed in North Korea's closed society.
I think we should reframe it as a cultural operation or cultural communication and use it as a way to enlighten North Korean soldiers and residents.
For years, the North belted out propaganda trashing the South's leaders while praising their own. Since last July, that was replaced by just noise. Village Chief An's wife, Kim Ok-sin, says it makes no sense.
You're under the sonic bombardment every day. It would be much better if actual bombs fell. At least then, the government would do something about it.
Then, last Wednesday, President Lee Jae-myung called the South's broadcast. The North returned the favor the next day. He says he wants to restore trust and engagement with the North. The defector An Chang-il argues that Pyongyang is more interested in stopping the broadcast to save scarce electricity than to resume negotiations with the U.S. or South Korea. And even before the loudspeakers fell silent, as the moon shone over the rice fields of Samsangri, it seemed the sonic battle was already being won by crickets and frogs. Anthony Kim, NPR News, Samsangri Village, South Korea.
In 1.4 miles, turn left on West 24th Street.
Alfred Brindle, a highly respected Austrian pianist, has died at the age of 94. He was best known for piano playing with
Vigil tonight for a little boy believed to have been dumped in the Bronx River by his father. A body found today in the East River near the Whitestone Bridge may be 2-year-old Montrell Williams, and his father could be facing a murder charge. Eyewitness News reporter Sonia Rincon with family members who attended tonight's vigil.
Please make healing this family.
באנגלית יותר קל.
אבל גם השאלות לא כתובות, לא מתורגם טוב, מתורגם בצורה מבולבלת.
עשית טעות, היית נשאר עם האנגלית. האנגלית, אנחנו הרבה שנים פה, האנגלית יותר מובנה לנו.
בכלל, לא יודע מה תקות, אבל כל הזה על אלכוהול, לא במקום. נכשלתי עשיתי שאלות, אומרים נכשלת 7 מתוך 7.
רציתי להגיד לך, גם תסמן הכל לקראת סוף הטסט, תסמן הכל, לא משנה מה, תבחר הכל, אתה מבין? כאילו, בלי לדעת, בסגירת העיניים.
מה זה תסמן הכל?
אתה יודע, יש לך זמן קצוב, לקראת הסיום, תסמן תשובה אחת מכל שאלה, בלי לדעת אפילו מה זה, אתה מבין? ככה, כאילו לקחת סיכון של, אתה יודע, יותר טוב מלא לסמן כלום, לסמן משהו, אתה מבין?
לא, סימנתי.
סימנת את הכל?
כן. אבל אומרים, נכשלת 7 מתוך 7.
ועליה.
אני בכולם נכשלתי.
כן. לא, תעשה אנגלית יותר טוב.
אבל אל תגיד לי איך זה יצאתי, אל תגיד לילדה ואל תגיד...
לא, כן, הילדה... לא אגיד כלום. ככה זה הילדה, זה קטעי. לא, אבל אתה לא יכולת להגיד לו שאתה רוצה לשנות לאנגלית, או שזה רק...
לא, אני בחרתי באנגלית, אבל אני מבין עברית.
לא, זה טעות, מה? האנגלית יותר קלה, שמתי לב. אני גם ניסיתי פעם להשתמש בדברים של האנגלית, אז הם מבינים לך תדע.
איפה בעברית?
כן, לא זוכר איזה...
לא, הבנתי את המילים, אבל הכל מבולבל כזה.
אז כדאי להתרכז על האלכוהול, אני רואה שתמיד הרבה שאלות על האלכוהול.
כן.
כדאי שגם לחתולה הרבה שאלות על האלכוהול.
לא, אלכוהול בשאלות אתה מבין אותם, אבל הבעיה זה... אין בעיה מזה את האלכוהול. כי אתה מביא, אומר לך, איך אתה זה, ואתה אומר, אתה תן תינוק שאתה בשליטה מלאה והכרה מלאה.
כן, מה שנקרא, אתה יודע, common sense. טוב, נזמין לך לעוד חודש-חודשיים, בפעם הבאה...
אל תזמין עכשיו, תתאמן קודם טוב, ואחר כך נשלח.
שאני אומר, לעוד חודש-חודשיים, לאנגלית.
אני אגיד לך, אני מוכן, אני אגיד לך מתי.
טוב, לפחות לא מבקשים לך כסף. תשמור על החשבון חשמל.
כן.
הייתי עכשיו בניו ג'רסי, כמה עשן יש בניו ג'רסי, לא רואים כלום.
עשן זה עשן או ערפל?
ערפל.
ערפל זה עננים.
כן. כל השמטה בניו ג'רסי.
כן, זה חמודה. You're the most cute girl I ever saw.
חתולה אומרת, יש לה 15 אנשים בחדר.
כן.
אתה יש לך רק אחד, אז זה טוב.
כן.
טוב, אתה זה כבר מלון, זה...
כן. להעביר אותה אחרי שבועיים למלון.
כן. אמרו לה שהיא חייבת להיות שם ב-11, אם לא יתנו את המיטה שלה למישהו אחר.
כן, ב-11.
אבל אצלך ב-10, לא?
לא, ב-11.
11 גם? זרקו לה את כל התמרוקים, את הסכינים, את המספריים, אסור להכניס.
המבקים לא יודע למה עשו מלאכה.
לא, שלא תתייפייף שם ליד כל הכושיות, שהכושיות לא יתבעסו. תתייפייף בחוץ, לא אצלהם.
לא, לא יודע מה זה.
כלי פור, אני יודע.
היה אצלנו קוקסינלים שם מתעפרים בבניין.
טוב, אצלך זה קצת אחרת, זה לא שאלטר, זה מלון. קצת נועלים אחרים.
כן.
היית מתקשר אליי, שלח לי טקסט, לשאול אם לעשות בעברית או לא, הייתי מייעץ לך, לא כדאי לך.
לא, אמרתי נעשה בעברית המחר. זה לא שלא הבנתי את השפה, הבנתי, אבל זה לא כאלה מפולפלות. הם עשו כזה, אני חושב
סבתוכה.
תרגום איזה אפליקציה, אתה מבין?
כן, זה שונה. וגם שתגיד לצ'אט GPT לתרגם משהו מאנגלית לעברית, הוא גם יתרגם לך את זה בצורה של סבתוכה.
כן, טוב, ונראה לי זו אפליקציה ישנה, תרגום מהאפליקציות ישנות שמתרגמות פחות טוב, מכיר את זה?
כן.
האפליקציה מהראשונות האלה נראה לי.
לא, זה לא, אל תעשה את זה. לפעמים עושים יידיש גם, הרבה פעמים עושים. זה עברית או יידיש?
עברית. שואלים אותך איזה שפה אתה רוצה.
לא, תגיד להם אנגלית וזהו.
ישר אומרים לי ספניש או אינגליש?
חשבו שאתה ספניש.
אבל הם אומרים לי ספניש.
תאמין לי, גם אלה של הספנישים אתה התבלבלו. עדיף להם גם באנגלית.
לא, מבינים להם בשפה שלהם בדיוק כמו שזה. בדיוק כמו השפה שלהם.
כמו שהם מדברים, תרגם אותם.
לא צריך לתרגם, מביאים להם את זה מוכר כמו שהם יודעים.
כן.
זה בארץ שלהם. וכל זה גם ספני. אבל טראמפ אומר, תעשה את השפה הרשמית, אנגלית.
כן, כמובן.
כי אמריקה אין לה שפה רשמית בחצה, אתה יודע?
אבל עכשיו הוא הוציא צו לא לגעת באנשים של מסעדות, של מלונות ושל חקלאות. כי הוא בעצמו, העיפו לו את כל האנשים מהמלונות, ונשאר לו אנשים לא מנקים לו במלונות. אז העיפו לו את המהגרים מהמלונות. אז הוא עשה צו לא לגעת בעובדים של המלונות, של החקלאות ומסעדות.
ומה עם הפחם?
לא יודע, אתה יודע, זה הדברים שקשורים אליו, הוא אומר.
ומה עם השליחים?
לא יודע, שליחים כנראה, שליחים מניאקים, אתה יודע, חיילים לעצור אותם, לעשות להם בעיות. עושים להם אז בא לבית משפט לקרימינל.
כן, שביח, מרוויח. כמה גרושים ביום, אני יודע כמה מרוויח שביח, אני עבדתי בזה.
כן.
לא מרוויחים כלום.
כן, $2 כל שביח. חיים על הטיפים.
ואני רואה אותם, הם מחלקים אוכל כל היום לכל מיני מקומות מפוארים, והם הולכים חיים על הפיצה של 99 סנט.
אני גם עובד בזה לפעמים, יש לי אוברית.
כן, אבל זה לא עבודה עיקרית שלך, זה עבודה עיקרית שלך.
לא, נכון, יש לי אוברית שאני אומר.
סתם, הוא צודק, זה תמור על החשבון, על הארץ.
כן.
עליהם אני רואה אותם מסכנים, עומדים בתור לאכול פיצה שלו.
קניתי עם פיצה כזו, עושה לי בבא.
אבל ב-23 יש לך פיצה, בית פיצה, אתה אותה ממש טובה, אתה לא 50 פיצה, הבית פיצה שלו הכי טוב בזמן.
רזים, יש כאלה שמנים, אתה יודע.
כן, פעם ראיתי הודים כאלה.
זה הג'ין, מה שנקרא.
יש לאייפון, שומע טוב?
שומע נהדר.
בלי רעשים.
בלי רעשים. Well, thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow. Peace and love. Peace and love.
For all the hanger girls out there, I know you just can't wait some time. So at the same time, I'll place my order right when I'm leaving an event and select the pickup option, which means I get to skip not only the delivery fee but also the long lines. Oh, but it gets better. If you go to the homepage in the app, there's a dedicated promo section that you'll see with buy one get one free items and pickup options every day from all your favorite restaurants, which makes it fun to switch things up sometimes. Now imagine this: unlimited $0 delivery fee, members only perks, offers, and promotions. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, with the Uber One membership, you get all of that, like guilt-free ordering. Who doesn't love that? Okay, so this is pretty new, so you may not know this, but you can bundle from 2 stores at once on Uber Eats, meaning that you only pay one delivery fee, and the order is arrived at the same exact time.
See you tomorrow. Peace and love. Peace and love. See you tomorrow. Peace and love.
Share your personal referral code to your friends, and you get Uber Eats promo to spin when your friends place their first order. Plus, they'll get a promo to like win-win. Use those promo for yourself.